And we're back. So you have a YouTube story.
I do. Hold on. We need more coffee.
Oh, all right.
Can we start with
Cappuccino on the phone.
This makes me so happy. Okay. So if you don't think you're being watched on YouTube, so there's a YouTuber that I watch. And he's a homesteading DIY kind of guy, always, showing what he's doing. So 2 years ago, a year ago, he built this, they built the house first, and then he's building this garage and doing some other stuff. I just find it fascinating. He has a listener say to him, sends him a note in a year and some change later and says, "Hey, I think you covered up a wall outlet when you put in this wall." And he was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure you'd put in an outlet and you covered it up." So he goes to the spot, runs where the listener told him the outlet was. He went to that spot, cut into the wall, and sure enough, he had covered up an outlet when he put that wall up. Now, how crazy do you have to be to watch the videos that carefully that you notice, this is video and the guy's never even been there, that to notice that the guy with drywall covered up, and he doesn't show everything,
right?
Covered up the outlet. And I was thinking, if you the internet sleuths that are out there,
that they catch everything.
Oh my gosh. So if you think you're doing YouTube videos and people are not noticing what's in the background or what you're doing or what you're saying, they're going to remember, they're going to call you on it, those kinds of things. That was, I've kind of known, I kind of know this thing going in, but I was like, oh my God, somebody was watching that carefully. So if you're going to do that kind of stuff on YouTube, if you're going to do how this goes, you better have thick skin and be able to get everything exactly right, or be able, even if you get it exactly right, you're just going to get hammered, by the internet or by YouTube folks. So I think you have to have thick skin if you're going to go into that space. Yeah.
Absolutely. I have found, in fact, I'm trying to figure it out as we speak. Let me see if I can get data on one here real quick. I've been using Logitech's kind of built-in free video tool, and it's actually pretty cool because you just hit go and you can switch between screens and you can have words come up on the screen and things like that. And I'm trying to see what their audio codec is. It's variable. All right. That's not great. Because if you do audio microphone shootouts and your audio is not pristine, you will hear about it in the comments. People are like, "There's artifacts in this." And I'm like, it's pretty much what it is. I didn't have any effects on. So I now realize if I'm going to do any kind of microphone shootout, I almost need to link to the WAV file for these people to be happy. But also I need to go back to Camtasia, which it's not that hard. In fact, the new version, it used to drive me nuts. The version I had, 2019, they wouldn't let the camera go widescreen. I had to go in, and it was a hassle. They have since fixed that. But I love the fact that when I was done with, it's called Logi, the Logitech software. When I was done, if I didn't make any mistakes, it was done. And with Camtasia, I can do a perfect take, and now I got to render it, and that at times can take forever. So, what are you going to do? But
I am surprised the clock on this computer is off. It's an old computer, and I can't actually set, and it's kind of blurry. You can't kind of see it. But it's actually been for weeks. It's been off. And I kind of leave it just to kind of see if anyone
wait to see who's going to catch it.
I notice it. I did try to fix it, and I can't. It's an old Surface RT from Microsoft. It's not even supported anymore, and it's surprising it even works. But I tried to go in. I can't change the year back. The problem is it's 2027 or something on the computer. And of course, that's not the year. I should probably try to figure out which year is the same as now and change it to it. But and then I had to reset up some wireless stuff. Normally, I have a Chromecast here playing, and had to reconfigure my wireless network here, which, by the way, in today's world of IoT, when you have your lights and these wonderful digital assistants and stuff, if you have to change your SSID on your Wi-Fi, which I did, I wanted to clean some things up. Right. Everything goes down. None of the lights work. None of the devices work. You have to go and reset them up. They're all different. It's a ton of work.
On my list of things to do today is to wipe out all of my reminders on the woman in the tube, because I somehow made a setting to not announce those in my office because, well, I might be recording a podcast. The problem is I'm always in my office. So I'll be sitting here and I'll have a reminder go off in my bedroom that I need to hear, and I can't. And I'm like, oh, that's dumb. And the other thing with that one that I thought was so stupid is each device has its own address. And I'm like, it's in the house. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not going to have one in Akron and then my other one's in Cuyahoga Falls. I'm like, no, it doesn't work that way. So when I would ask the living room,
but you might, I mean, you could have one.
Yeah.
Say you had a lake house.
But I think they should have, like, I don't know. There was just a way I was like, because I would ask the living room and it'd be like, the weather in Cuyahoga Falls. I'm like, I'm not in Cuyahoga Falls anymore. And I was like, so I had to go into every puck, everything I had, and change the address. And I was like, ugh. So that was one that
it's a nightmare. Yeah, it's a nightmare. I had to factory reset my wireless router here, and last weekend I had some trouble, and I literally spent all day Sunday reattaching my Internet of Things devices, my lights, these things, because they each have a different app. Because I'm a tech guy, I buy different kinds of things to test them out.
Oh yeah,
right. And by the end of the day, Sunday, I was like, I need to throw all of these out and just buy, multiple versions of the same thing. Because I have 3 different kinds of cameras. I have 3 different kinds of wall plugs. I have 3 different kinds of lights.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah, you're going into the app and changing those.
The other thing we need is, I don't think I have one sitting here. I bought these. It's basically an extension cord that's about 6 inches long. And I bought those because if you have a wall plug and you want to stick 2, like, not happening. So I have all these stupid cables sticking out of the wall so I can stick in my smart plug to tell it to turn on the Christmas tree. It's like,
don't ask me why I have this available, but there it is.
That's it.
These are helpful. These are really helpful.
They're super handy, and you can buy like a 6-pack for not that much. But yeah, that's exactly all my, and then I have one. I finally found a power strip, because I have 2 plugs going to my tree. One's for the tree and one's for the star. And I was like, how am I going to turn on the tree with one command? I'm like, I'll put them into a power strip, and then the power strip into the, that whole thing. So Dave says, we play a game in our house. We have a conversation near our phones and see how long it takes the items in our conversation to show up in our ad and news streams. Wait, what? Huh?
Hey, go into your A Lady app. And there's a section, go to settings. And then I think there's some voice command things, and you can, to help it recognize voices better. Yeah. You can go and listen to some of the things it's been recording. I did that last night, and I was like, ooh, this is kind of spooky. Like, it's really listening a lot. Now it only plays back the commands. In theory, it's only supposed to be listening to commands that you record. But I've said you can whisper to her, and she'll whisper back.
That's creepy. I've done that.
And so some of those recordings were me whispering, and you're like, oh, that sounds that sounds awful. So if you really want to freak yourself out, go in and do some voice training on that thing, because it's going to say, is this you? In this case, it's Sarah and I. It's trying to differentiate between the two. And so you go listen to those, and you're like, because the new Sidewalk is getting ready to launch on those Amazon devices.
I've heard that.
Right? And there's a lot of controversy over whether you leave it enabled or disabled. It's on by default.
Explain what Sidewalk is for somebody.
Basically, Sidewalk is like mesh networking for your neighborhood. So everybody that has one of these devices, if you turn it on, they'll begin to connect to each other. That'll help you extend. So your Wi-Fi would then extend to your neighbor's house. So that Amazon is saying it's in a different frequency and it's low bandwidth and those kinds of things, right? It's really designed for things like your cameras, your outdoor cameras, and dog collars and some of those kind of things to extend your ability outside of your house. But man, it's created a lot of controversy in that. And it's on, by the way, it's on by default. So if you don't want to do that right away, I went in and turned it off. And I'm usually a pretty open guy, but I was like, I think I'm going to wait for this one to a little water go under the bridge before I let this thing happen.
There's a thing in Akron where they were going to give away free video doorbells to people. And oh, by the way, the police might occasionally use that camera if we need to, go in and get, try to identify somebody.
Right.
And there was a lot of pushback on that. They're like, hey, we'd love the free doorbell, but So, and then Dave's got a question. Has anyone ever had issues streaming apps like StreamYard over a VPN?
Oh.
I've never used a VPN.
Yeah,
I know what they are.
And I use a VPN on my phone from time to time, but I wouldn't necessarily. I have to try that. I have to try it. I haven't.
Yeah. Did Comcast try this sidewalk thingy?
Okay, well, let's be really clear. A lot of the ISPs, if you purchase the modem, the wireless routers from them, they're doing this already. Yeah. So that's Cox Communications, which is here in the Omaha area. They not only are serving you Wi-Fi, but they're also creating a Cox open Wi-Fi that people can connect to, and it's going through you're not charged for the bandwidth, right? It's a separate kind of channel thing, but they're going through your thing. So that's some of them are doing this. They didn't try, they're doing.
Yeah. They didn't really ask for permission. Yeah. They're like, oh, it's on unless you turn it off. It's
if you open your phone and you go to you go to the settings and you go to Wi-Fi, if you see your service provider's like hotspot, it's probably you. You are probably the hotspot. So you might want to check that out. Hard to turn those off too.
Fun.
You have to basically not use their router, by your own.
Lucky.
Yeah.
Here's we're gonna take a hard left and change topics here.
This was so much fun though. Doom and gloom.
Have you ever noticed if there's a website service that's better for SEO? So Wix, Weebly, Squarespace. I just know, I think they have fixed this. When Squarespace first came out, they would have the title, but it didn't behind the scenes have the H1 tag on it, which is what triggers Google that, hey, these words are very important. It's our title. I think they fixed that. That was years ago. I don't know that as long as you are able to go and have a title and subtitles and things like that, the H1s, the H2s, the H3s, and you write that people will read it. I don't know that it really matters. I don't know. Jim, any insights on that?
No, I don't. This is an area, this SEO area, I'm not particularly good at.
Yeah, that's for Black Friday. I bought myself access to Neil Patel, who's this SEO guru. I bought his course, and what's great about this, there's actually a part of my brain that thinks I'm actually going to watch it. I should, because I paid money for it. But I'm kind of like, oh, look at this, and it's such a good deal. And it's
what's blocking you, Dave? What's the fear that's blocking you?
No, it's not that. It's just focus. Basically, I started to watch some of the podcast movement stuff, and was kind of like, meh. That's another one I was surprised people not using microphones. I was like, really? Podcasters are not going to use really?
Yeah, why would you do that?
One person I will give credit. They were using a Yeti off camera, and actually it must have been right there. Because I'm like, that's weird. There's no microphone, but you don't sound that bad. And then I noticed she moved, and I noticed like in the very, very bottom of her screen, I was like, oh wait, that's the top of a Yeti. So
SEO has a lot of camps. I'm noticing like, oh no, SEO, you should be doing this, or SEO, you should be doing that. Yeah. And then you're like, but those contradict. I know. Like, well, what do I do?
Yeah, exactly. So, he says it does help to recommend things like tagging images, with alt descriptions, some rushes.
Well, that's a good human thing to do. Like, because people who can't see the screen. Yeah. I don't do enough of that myself, to be honest.
No, that's one of the things that, well, the whatever it is, Yoast SEO plugin is pretty good at reminding you to do things like that. The other thing, while we're here, this is just a nice thing to do. We were talking, I think it was last week, about Podchaser. and how we need to do more with it. So I was over there playing this morning. If you go to podchaser.com/integrations and feel so moved, vote up my podcast reviews from our buddy Daniel J. Lewis is over there. And there are other things. There are a lot of things over there I've never heard of. And I still don't get Podlink. There's another one of those, use our link to make a link to about your stuff. I'm like, how about if I just link to my website? What else do we have? Here is it was an interesting article. If your audience is on Twitter, and it was basically marketing for sports podcasters. And he pointed out that, and I've started doing this. I don't know if it's going to work or not, but I have my show artwork and I'll like the title. In fact, let me find it. I'm playing basically, and I'm like, I don't know if this is going to be better or worse, but it'd be interesting. And I figure it's another way to maybe get somebody to click on it. My episode title for last week, where I was talking about Quibi, the episode title was "You Can't Buy an Audience If Your Podcast Sucks." That was the actual title in WordPress, but the title on my image said "How to Avoid a $1.7 billion mistake, lessons from Quibi." So I'm kind of like, if you can't pick which title to use, I'm going to use two. So between the two, you kind of, and I was like, like I'm going to try that. Maybe if I hit them with two different titles, they'll click play. So, yeah. Coach Dave says I've used my podcast reviews from DJL for years. It does what it says it does.
You know what I discovered about reviews?
What?
If you don't ask for them, you don't get them.
Not a lot.
Zero. I don't think I've had a review in 4 years.
Well, here's the thing that I like about that though, because I get I get more on podcast review show, or not review, podcast rodeo show, and it's usually disgruntled people. Like, how dare you say my show is, you hack. But when you do get a review, then it's kind of cool because you didn't ask for it.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, this is somebody who really, thought it'd be cool to do that. But yeah, I'm with you though. If you don't ask, you don't get. So
no, you have to ask. I don't think people would just normally do it for the most part. You may every once in a while get an anomaly, but if you want them, if they're a big deal to you, I think you got to ask for them.
Yeah. It was funny. I was making some tutorials. If you want to learn Podpage, speaking of sites that went down with AWS, if you go to schoolofpodcasting.com/learn Podpage, I just updated all the videos last night, and that was fun because that guy is constantly adding new features. So making videos for that was fun. But I was using, I moved the website Best Podcasting Gear over there. And that's when I realized that all that content was so outdated because I was talking about mixers and, the PR. It's funny. I don't know that we still kind of talk about, I don't have my jingle set up, but the Heil PR40, that really doesn't get mentioned, at least for me. Like that wouldn't be in my top 5. I'd be like, okay, RE320, maybe I like the, I think it's the Rodecaster from Rode. That I thought I like the Audio Technica BP40 is a pretty cool mic. There's a bunch of them, but unless you really want that deep bassy thing, I'm like, but, I was just amazed at how much of it was just way, way outdated. And getting back to reviews, I went to show the feature where you can pick what reviews you want to show on your website. And I didn't have a single one. And I was like, oh yeah, we'll have to switch to a different show to show that feature. Because they have that whole thing where you can have, you can go in your reviews and say, put these on the front page. And then you can have a link to rate and review the show. And I was like, I'm with you. I'm like, it's not, I like them when I get them, but it's not a high priority for me. I cringe every time I hear somebody say, please rate and review the show. It helps us get found and it helps us in the rankings. I'm just like, no, it doesn't. It doesn't.
It helps some ego though. And so I don't poo poo it. If you want to ask for them and they're important to you, get them, ask for them and get them, build them up. If that's something you can use for social proof, great. If they help you, use them. I don't think there's any reason not to get them. They may not do what you think they do, but that's debatable.
Yeah, the time I've seen them really work is I had somebody that said they were trying to get a sponsor and they got the sponsor because the sponsor saw how many reviews they had. And I was like, well, there you go. A podcast I was listening to asked for Stitcher reviews, Bang says, and I went through the pain of making one. Their second review, but I was hate listening. There you go. So that guy moved you to write a review.
Oh, hate listening. I like that. I like that phrase.
No. So do reviews really work? They do not help you get found. They do not help you in the rankings. No, they are social proof. And that key point here, asterisk, may help you if somebody's looking at two podcasts and one has 146 and one has 12. They may go to the 146 one because it shows that your audience is a little more engaged. But in reviews, we threw it in the show notes a couple weeks ago. Paul Culligan has a guy that's number 5 in health, which is a pretty competitive, category. And the guy's number 5 and had 0 reviews. And like he was higher than people with, hundreds of reviews. It's just one of those things that gets repeated so often that people think it's true and it's just not. So Dave says, yeah, reviews help me feel grateful to my audience.
Yeah.
Also make me want to give them a shout out in the next episode. Yep. Yeah. I always just do that at the end because reviews do nothing for your audience. If I say, hey, Jim Mom 37 said, thanks for the show. Dave's great. Okay. That's good for me. Not so much good for my audience, but that's just one of those things I call an opinion.
GYM mom, that kind of Jim Mom.
Yeah.
It's weird the other way.
Yeah. Whitney Johnson reads some recent reviews near the end of her episode. Sometimes it helps get more reviews. Yep. Yeah. That's my whole thing. Am I giving for me? And again, it's just an opinion. Just do those at the end. I wouldn't open up with that. I had a guy on YouTube that did that. And I said, hey, for the record, because he said, I'm going to read these reviews, please. And he begged his audience, write reviews. He goes, it really helps me get found. I said, hey, for the record, it doesn't. Just, for the record, I'm quoting Rob Walsh and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, well, I talked to someone at Apple. And I'm like, okay, whatever. So, maybe he did.
The YouTube culture is pretty good about this, though, especially with Patreon. I watch a lot of YouTubers who are really good at giving shout outs to their Patreon folks in the videos, not necessarily a section like we do, but a section where they talk about it, but in the video. And I think those are actually beneficial. Now, they're beneficial, maybe not from a systematic perspective, but I think from a cultural perspective, they're really good. And so I think that's things to do that helps build, and this is kind of what they're saying in the chat room, kind of help build podcast
community.
Culture and community. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Kim brings up a good point. He talked to someone at Apple. Yeah. Well, if you're at an event, you can. I've talked to people from Apple, but they won't say anything on the record. What does help you get found, Dave? If reviews are not a factor, is it a number of downloads, velocity? You guessed it's subscribers and total number of downloads.
We're talking about iTunes.
iTunes, yeah,
in particular, right?
Yeah.
Because no, we don't know what Stitcher does. We don't know what Spotify does. We don't know, some of those kinds of things.
And then the other thing is, content. I'm trying to think of the last podcast I shared. It's been a while since I've was like, wow, this is great. I got to share it.
Yeah. Be interesting to somebody.
Yeah. That's the big one. Yeah. Craig has a great point. He says, I'd rather get one piece of show feedback than 10 reviews. Yep. That's you. Cause that way I can start a conversation with someone. So yeah. And it's news. Well, there's new subscribers within a X amount of period and then total number of subscribers. And is it, new subscribers within a certain amount of period and then total number of downloads, I think I'd have to go back and watch the presentation from Rob, but and then of course, then that always brings up the question of, does that really help? I mean, Libsyn had a podcast on the front page of iTunes, not in the category, open up iTunes right there. We got a couple hundred downloads. And I was like, cause I really expected thousands of people just going, what's this? Yeah. And it was called Thanks Podcasting. Maybe that was it. Maybe it didn't really grab people and it was, a podcast about podcasting. But when I was like, how many? And they're like, a couple hundred. And I was like, wow. So, so having a hub on your show with links to all the platforms in addition to iTunes makes sense. Here's why. Now, for me, I like to have Apple, Spotify, Google, and Amazon. Those are probably the top 4. And then it's like, if maybe I'll have those in the episode, and then I'll have a link to subscribe where I got everything. Because if I hit them with 37, they're going to like, I don't know what to do. But it does, because how this is going to work. And somebody did this week. That was, did I put that snarky video out? Maybe not. A podcast consultant said, hey, he was in Podcast Movement. He's like, hey, my new podcast is out. It's a podcast about podcasting, which I kind of was like, isn't that self-promotion? And I went to get it in Overcast, and he was excited because he was in Apple. Well, it takes a while for all these apps that pull from the back end of Apple to get it. And I was like, ooh, you just, here's a phrase that I want to know the origins of. We need Emily to bring back the story behind. Where did the phrase screwed the pooch come from? It's the weirdest phrase. Cause I'm like, man, that guy screwed the pooch. And I was like, cause I'm not going to, what I did was I ended up going and getting his RSS feed from Apple, which is not easy. You can't do that on a Mac. And then slacked that RSS feed to my phone, where I copied it and pasted it into Overcast. I'm like, nobody's doing that. So that was one that I was like, egads.
I don't know if you want to ever use that phrase again.
Oh, okay. I also don't think you want to Google that phrase, especially Google Images. That would be bad. Not good. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no, it's not a good.
Okay.
Well, I think it's a tamer version. It's like using frack or frickin' kind of thing instead. Yeah. So
Dave says he knocks on doors and talks about a show all the time on the sidelines of games, and asks for a phone and subscribe. Yeah, that's another one. I always kind of make a joke out of it, but I'm not joking. And I will, if I'm on a stage and it's appropriate, I will say, hey, everybody, say, hey, Siri, subscribe to the School of Podcasting. And then my phone just lit up. So
mine didn't. Well, it's because it can't hear you.
Yeah. But anyway.
Now I'm traumatized.
Yeah.
Reading about that phrase.
But yeah, that was one. I don't think I put that out because it was kind of like, I want to play nice. And I think that was the one I was like, look, if you can't say anything nice, just there's a guy that's doing a podcast about podcasting on Spotify only, which technically is not a podcast, which I thought was interesting. It comes from NASA.
Well, that's a team article on it.
Yeah.
I think they're trying to I think if you go back a little bit farther on its origins, it's a little scary.
Yeah. I have a sticker on my back window. My license plate says podcast. So when I lived in the apartment, they're like, oh, you're the podcast dude. And I was like, yep. Oh, here's another tip. And I was amazed at this. How are we doing on time? Okay. When I had the P4 shipped, it said Dave Jackson, care of School of Podcasting. And I've had 2 drivers now drop off something. And this one I said I have to sign for it. I didn't want to, nobody's going to steal it, but I didn't want it to go. So these are drivers who are bored out of their gourd driving around. And the one guy, I had a shirt that said, ask me about my podcast. And so he hands me my package and then says, oh, what's your podcast about? And I go, School of Podcasting. And I think I told you that story. That was the guy that heard me on the radio. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then he went on to talk about how he loves listening to podcasts. And so this guy drops this off and he goes, oh, School of Podcasting. He goes, what's your podcast? I go, well, that's it. It's School of Podcasting. I teach people how to podcast. And this guy went on, I'm going to say 5 to 10 minutes. I'm freezing to death. It's 42 degrees outside. I have no coat on. And he's telling me how much he's learned about science from podcasts. And he's like, and I'm talking about this like it's not, I think it was Wednesday. Like it's not a holiday system, but he just went on and on about how much he loved podcasts. So, and I was like, man, if we can get delivery drivers to talk about our show, they know other delivery drivers and that would be a way to do that. But I was surprised that just by putting podcasting on my address, that guy was like, huh. So anyway, but I was surprised, but I just thought about that. I'm like, well, there are, if you could find truck drivers or delivery guys or people that are really bored at work and can listen to podcasts. So
Yeah, but large scale. I mean, if you're going to get
Right.
exponential growth, you got to get it out. I mean, it's
Yeah.
got to kind of catch some kind of something somewhere to get that. Most people are never going to see that kind of growth.
Right.
You're just not,
Little by little, baby steps. So awesome. Well, another Saturday has come upon us.
Yeah, it's come and gone. It's always good it's good to connect. I think Christmas time now, I think we can officially kind of sponsor Christmas, right? We can kind of say those kinds of things coming up, right? We're beyond the Thanksgiving holiday. There's a debate, right? Can you in the United States, can you start getting ready for Christmas before Thanksgiving? Is that even allowed? And
It didn't used to be. I
No.
did because my brother always ends up. I think like we might actually have Christmas on the 14th. I heard because he's going to go to Florida. I think it's here's the weird thing. His mother-in-law just got done with all sorts of chemo treatments, and so she's in a somewhat
I need to get my copy some meds.
and so she's in a already reduced health state. And then he's afraid to see his grandkids because they keep sending the kids to school and then they send them home to quarantine. Mm-hmm. And he's like, so the last thing I want to do is actually pick up some COVID, take it to Florida and give it to my mother-in-law. Right. So it's this weird thing. Like we might actually not do Christmas. He goes, I'll probably have you over because you don't see anybody. He goes, I don't think we're going to do the whole grandkids, everybody over big house. Plus there's you can only have 6 people in Ohio. That was a fun thing. Thanksgiving, I'm hanging out with my brother and we were going to watch a holiday movie. And then my sister's like, wait, that's not going to be over before 10. He goes, you got to be home before 10.
Oh, that's right. You guys have a curfew now.
And they raised it up. If you get busted, it's a pretty hefty fine. So I was like, well, I guess I'm going home.
So are the streets just empty at night then after 10?
I don't know. I need to go look. So
that's early in the pandemic. That was weird. It's really slowed people down, but we got some work to do. December will be interesting. Hopefully we can flatten the curve a little bit through December. So, all right, friend.
All right. We'll see y'all next Saturday.
You bet. Take care. We'll see you guys.
We'll see you. Take care. Bye-bye.